Okay, why does Paul in 1 Corinthians 15 not give details?
He gives plenty of details.
He says Jesus appeared to this person, and this group of people. Doesn't say where, when, what order. Some scholars believe he didn't say because he didn't know.
Well, again, Mr. Nayland, we can't second-guess a writer. You cannot demand that a writer give the detail that you would like to have him give at a particular point. The question isn't what he might have said, it's whether what he did say actually occurred. And when Paul himself was there, he's in a much more advantageous position than you or me. And when he goes on in 1 Corinthians, after listing these witnesses, and talks about the nature of the resurrection, he uses the word in Greek, body, again and again. He talks about a spiritual body. You give the impression that he was talking about a sort of a spirit flitting around and that this could be purely subjective and visionary. But Paul stresses soma, the word body, throughout that entire passage. And the reason is that for Jews, the disembodied soul was an impossible idea. Paul, if he were talking about any resurrection, was certainly talking about a bodily resurrection, to correlate it with the general resurrection at the end of time, which is bodily after all.
Mr. Nayland, also, wouldn't it make sense that if this came out around 55 A.D., that you have people that are very vocal and visible that he's naming? Peter was not in hiding. The other apostles were out standing in these cities saying the same thing. And he was merely reporting, listen, go over to this city or even here, you'll see these men, check it out. Or possibly even people in Corinth themselves. These people were well known and still alive that he was quoting, and I think that as such, that put them on the hot seat. Also, you also, I think, in the Gospels have the fact that places where the appearances came were mentioned, and the people that were there were mentioned again. So it's not like he's saying these things in a vacuum.
Okay, but
does that make sense?
Some. You're talking as though if I was a skeptic, if I was a Jew or a pagan or whatever living 2,000 years ago, that if I went and checked out these things, that I could write it down and have it survive to today.
Right on.
How could I, when in 312, when Constantine, the conversion of Constantine, the Christian religion became the dominant religion, and all of the
official religion of the Roman Empire.
All of the books were burned.
No, they weren't burned.
Yes.
What do you mean all the books? Not the books of all Jews, for goodness sake.
No, but okay, take Celsus, the early opponent of...
Yes, but wait a minute. We have a tremendous quantity of Jewish literature from that early period that survived in the Middle Ages, and there was no systematic decimation of Jewish writings, and it was the Jews who had the primary interest in this, and the Jewish religious leaders who had brought about many of the events that we're talking about, who had the means, motive, and opportunity to destroy this if they had had any evidence.
What we're doing is we're reading the importance of this issue today back into time. And if you read Josephus, who writes about events of this time, you see there are miracle workers everywhere all over Palestine. So why would...
They're miracle claimants.
I think Josephus is one who said that some claimed, and in the documents themselves, I think the ones that I remember, they said, guy went out and said, part Jordan 7 times, it didn't part, and they stoned him. They had a rock party.
That was Theudas, the pseudo-Messiah. And of course there were people who went out and said things like that, but there was quite a difference between Theudas, who huffed and puffed on the banks of the Jordan, nothing happened, and the Romans came in and cleaned him up, and Jesus...
Well, the Romans came in and crucified Jesus.
Ah, but then we have the little matter of the resurrection. Don't we? Which is the subject of our focus, and for which the primary witnesses assert facticity.